Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another video, and in this video we're going to be talking about the final season of Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous, which has just come out a little bit over a week ago. I'm a little bit late to this one. I feel like there's just been so many movies and so many shows, so many series that unfortunately I've fallen behind on. As of filming this, like Stranger Things just came back, so there's just so much I've been keeping up with. As you can tell if you've been watching the channel, I've been dropping a lot of reviews. But if you don't know who I am, my name is Anthony A. Perez, and I'm a ginormous Jurassic Park fan. I've covered all of the films, including all the Jurassic World films. And while there are certain films in the franchise that I don't love as much, even the ones that I dislike the most, there's still something I just have for this franchise. And so a few years back, I jumped into the animated series Camp Cretaceous, which I did not expect to love as much as I did. And then here we are now talking about the end of the sequel series called Chaos Theory. If you are not familiar with what these animated Jurassic World shows are, there are two of them now, and the two series take place during the events of the Jurassic World films and follow a group of kids known as the Nublar Six, who started as kind of like testers for a summer camp called Camp Cretaceous that goes wrong, as everything that you see happen in the Jurassic World movie, the first one, takes place, and then these kids are left on the island after everything that happened with the Indominus Rex. And then over the course of the seasons of Camp Cretaceous, we see them surviving on the island on their own. Then eventually we got this one, Chaos Theory, which is a sequel series that sees all these kids aged up into college age and takes place specifically within the events of Jurassic World Dominion, with this final season taking place during the very final bits of Jurassic World Dominion. And so yeah, if you followed my coverage of this series so far, you'll know that I've had a lot of fun with it, and I think in a lot of ways these animated shows are a lot better story-wise and character-wise than even the live-action Jurassic World movies, which I guess isn't really a high bar for some, but I genuinely think that while these animated shows have been so goofy in so many ways, I think they've done such a great job of really capitalizing on the wonder and the awe, but also the fear and all that crazy stuff that comes from the Jurassic Park franchise. So with all that said, I went into this season very excited, but it was a bittersweet thing. You know, it was going to be the end of this series that I've really thoroughly enjoyed, and the end of our time with these characters, though I do have a feeling that we'll probably see more with these characters at some point down the line. But yeah, like I typically like to do, let's break down what this final season was about, and then we'll get more into my thoughts on the show. The fourth and final season of Jurassic World Chaos Theories brings the Nublar Six back together for one last mission. After uncovering hints of a larger conspiracy, Darius and the rest of the group reunite and head deep into Biosyn Valley, where dinosaurs are being used in illegal trafficking and dangerous genetic experiments. As they infiltrate Biosyn operations, the friends face weaponized dinosaurs, corrupt corporate forces, and the lingering trauma of everything that they have survived since Isla Nublar. Old wounds and unresolved tensions resurface, including Brooklyn's choices and the fractures they cause in the group. The final season pushes each of them to decide what kind of future they want and whether they are willing to risk everything to expose Biosyn's secrets and protect both humans and dinosaurs from another disaster. And yeah, you know what? I really enjoyed this final season. I have some gripes when I think about it overall, and even reading that synopsis that you can find online, I do think that in some ways this didn't feel like the finale that I wanted it to be, but in a lot of other ways I think it was a really touching send-off for these characters, and more than anything it was just great to spend time with these characters. These seasons have come pretty quickly, a lot of times giving us 2 seasons within a year's worth of time. So it's been nice to say goodbye to the characters for a while and then get back to them pretty quickly. Clearly, DreamWorks Animation, who works alongside Netflix to release these, was able to bash out these episodes pretty quickly. And they're only about 22 minutes with an intro and credits, so they're not super long episodes. It's an easy breezy watch. And so all of the seasons have been very easy to binge, and this season is no different. And on some note, I almost wish that they had made this season a little bit longer. You know, there's some ways that I feel like they really could have expanded upon things a little bit more, especially when it comes down to the conspiracies and everything that we see around Biosyn. Now, of course, the Jurassic World Dominion film does a lot to kind of like uncover things for the Biosyn storyline. Like a lot of that plays out there, even though Chris Pratt and those characters aren't involved here and we see it from a different lens. But I think part of the fun of these animated shows has been the ability to kind of play within that world and still kind of have an impact to some degree, even if we never saw it in the movies, and the movies aren't directly impacting the show 100% either. You know, they are able to kind of have their own storyline that have significance in and of themselves. And so with that said, going into this show, I was hoping for a little bit more finality in some things around Biosyn and our characters chasing down conspiracies, whereas I think the very end of this show kind of goes in a different direction, and we'll talk about that in a second. But with all of that said, I honestly really enjoyed my time watching the final season. I think the characters are just endearing. I think one of my favorite parts about this show and these two shows in general has just been these characters. You know, I think when you look at Jurassic Park, the original film has iconic, memorable characters, and you know, I think with every sequel, you've got tons of characters that might have memorable moments. But when it comes down to memorable Jurassic Park characters, a lot of times you think about the main characters from the first film that, of course, when they've appeared in various sequels, it's made it a lot better, or at least a lot more exciting. And so the Jurassic World films, while I enjoy them in their own way, and there's, you know, some that I don't like as much, I think for the most part, especially the Chris Pratt films, at least introduced some interesting characters. But I think one thing people struggled with was the deeper connection. And I think Jurassic World, Camp Cretaceous, and now Chaos Theory have done a great job of taking this Nublar 6 and making them like really likable Jurassic Park characters that for me are far more memorable than most of the characters you see in the movies. And I think it's because the shows took time to really develop these characters, their relationships. And I think the show also does a great job of just being able to, you know, dive deeper into the wonder, the awe, but the fear and the terror and the insanity that comes with the Jurassic Park franchise. It's able to give you that sense of drama. It's able to give you that sense of conspiracy, of, you know, scientific kind of masterminding, you know, like mad scientist kind of monster movie stuff, but also something that like honors nature and the idea of letting these creatures be safe and live a life on their own. And so I think that this show has done a great job of capturing that with its characters and showing us a bunch of different dynamics. And while both Camp Cretaceous and Chaos Theory lean into goofy at times, I think that this show overall, now that it's over, I can say just did a great job of just focusing on character while staying true to the themes of Jurassic Park, despite its goofiness at times. But yeah, this time around, narratively, I was really into all the episodes. There's definitely a lot of tension heavy moments, but now that the season is over, I can genuinely say it feels like at times the season kind of loses its way narratively, where it's like about the conspiracy and everything like that, but at a certain point something happens to one of our characters and it really becomes more about making sure we protect this character. It's a lot more about like, let's make sure that we get out of here safely, and less so for really like the big, you know, conspiracy plot that they had been following over the course of the multiple seasons that got them into the trouble that we see them in this season, or where they left off at the end of the last season. And so in a lot of ways, I think this season had a lot to juggle. It was trying to kind of pay off this conspiracy, we're going to get into Biosyn Valley kind of storyline that I don't necessarily know that it fully paid off, though there were some cool moments in there. But at the same time, it's a season that's trying to make sure that our characters are in a good spot. There's a lot of tension, especially around the character of Brooklyn. And by the way, if you're watching this, I'm going to assume that you've already seen the show, or that you've been following up the show at least before this season. But yeah, when it comes down to Brooklyn faking her death in the previous seasons and what that meant to the characters when they found out that she was actually alive and that she was lying to them and sneaking around their back, and sometimes they were close by and she just didn't let them know. I think that was a really interesting dynamic. And so I think that this season was trying to balance being a finale, but also tying into Jurassic World Dominion, but also really trying to bring our characters full circle based on, you know, everything that they've been through and a lot of the tension between them. And at times those moments really work. There's a lot of endearing, charming, you know, very like loving moments between these characters. There's some genuine moments of like real tension, like real friendship arguments that we see in this season that were engaging to watch. But it does kind of feel at times like it's like, what is the focus of this final season? Is it more about the friendship? Is it more about the connections to Jurassic World Dominion? Is it more about getting out of this scary situation safely. I do think it starts to lose its way a little bit near the end. And when the season ended, my wife was kind of like, oh man, is that really the end? And I don't think it was because she didn't like it, because she said she enjoyed the season, but I think it had more to do with the fact that it does kind of feel in some ways that like they could do more and they just kind of didn't. You know what I mean? I feel like this season really could have benefited from either longer episodes or just, more episodes, or, don't end it here. Do more. I honestly think that they can do more moving forward. And I wonder now, with the 2 different seasons that we've gotten, or the 2 different series that we've gotten, and with a little bit of a time jump, if we're going to get something like that in the future that's going to take place during the events of maybe the new Scarlett Johansson films. I'm not sure. It may sound like I'm really nitpicky and negative on this season, but ultimately, at the end of the day, despite my grievances with maybe the focus of the season, I think the time spent with the Nublar 6 in this season was great. I enjoyed the animation. There's some cool dino action moments in here for sure, as a longtime fan of Jurassic Park and just this world and dinosaurs. If you guys have been listening to me talk about Jurassic Park or the various dinosaur films that I've covered here on the channel, including all 14 Land Before Time movies, then you know that I love dinosaurs. And as a kid, I loved dinosaur movies. I wanted to be a paleontologist. So this season gives you tons of that stuff that I really love about Jurassic Park. Again, the awe and the wonder and the nature of them, but also the mad scientist, like monster movie side of things. That's just kind of cool to see. So I think this season definitely delivers on some cool dinosaur tense action, but also some great heartfelt moments between the characters that I think really at the end of the day win over the finale, that I do think at times feels like it's more about let's get out of this scary situation and less so like really giving us a cemented ending to the conspiracy storyline we've been following. But I do think overall left the series with me leaving it with a smile. When it was the final moments with our characters are endearing, and more than anything made me feel sad. Like, it's a bittersweet thing because I can appreciate things coming to an end, but at the same time, I'm going to miss these characters. I could have at least gone for one other season. I do think they were trying to tie themselves specifically to the end of Dominion, but I think one other season where we can see these characters in a new way, or maybe not as directly tied to the events of the Jurassic World films, even though they're in the background, I think could have really made for a much stronger, conclusion for these characters. But honestly, at the same time, I say all that saying I really do think they're going to bring us more. So with all that said, that's going to be my long, rambly review on Jurassic World Chaos Theory's final season, and just my thoughts on the series as a whole. All in all, I think Camp Cretaceous and Chaos Theory are 2 of the best things to come out in the franchise. I think that they have some of the most interesting characters, and even though they get a little silly and goofy and at times definitely something that's made more for kids, I think that they honor the franchise in so many ways, and more than anything, I think have better stories than a lot of the modern day Jurassic World films. So let me know down below in the comments, do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? What would you have liked to have seen with this final season? And like me, are you hoping that we're going to get another sequel series somewhere down the line that ties into the Scarlett Johansson films? Whatever the case may be, leave any and all comments down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.